Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Round Table.
You're listening to Roundtable. I'm Niu Honglin, joined by Steve and Ding Heng. You've just had the ultimate friendship breakup. Goodbye to your daily text buddy and partner in crime. It's a little like breaking up with a partner, but without the emotional baggage and maybe a little more drama. What happens when friendships end? Spoiler alert, it's not always as pretty as we'd hope, but it's always a learning experience. And would you prefer air drying or clothes dryers for your everyday laundry? Because here in China, with the majority opt for air drying, more and more young people started to enjoy the toasty smell of the clean clothes. But first, friendship, like any bond, is built on the delicate balance of shared moments, trust, and mutual understanding. But what happens when that balance tips? When the people who once felt like family become strangers, or worse, sources of emotional turmoil? Today, let's look at a very important and also life's hardest question. What do we do when a friendship has run its course, and how can we learn from the end of it? So exactly why are we talking about this?
Well, I think that a lot of media focuses on when a romantic relationship ends, right? There are a trillion, probably 10 trillion songs in every language around the world written about heartbreak when you lose your boyfriend or girlfriend or things. I mean, it's Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift has made a career out of these types of songs. So when we have a romantic relationship, and tons of songs or movies or TV shows or books that we can turn to as a source of support, and we find it comforting to see or to hear about or to read about the fact that someone else is going through something similar or has gone through something similar, and we find comfort in that. But what you don't really see is a movie about a friendship ending. It's just not as dramatic. So it's not really covered in popular media. And in research, too. There's been tons of research conducted about what happens when a romantic relationship ends. But they don't get, when friendships end, that topic doesn't get as much attention from researchers as well. And Grace Veith is a researcher in social psychology at the University of Minnesota. And she studies friendship dissolution, which, to answer your question, is why we're talking about this today. And Grace said, I think people would be surprised that we researchers are just now starting to consider how friendships might end, and that it's a very recent phenomenon. The research, not the fact that friendships end, but the work is just beginning, and there's a clear societal script for how a breakup should go with a romantic partner, how we could get over it, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, but there's nothing for us to look to in how to get over it when a friendship ends.
Yes, and I think it has a lot to do with exactly why the friendship has ended or what caused it or the process of it. So I'm going to ask this personal question to Ding Heng. You can say no if you do not want to share, but do you have a friendship or a story you want to share with us? How did the last very memorable friendship ends for you? What was the reason? Were you just drifted apart, or was there a big, dramatic scene you shout out to each other? Or what was the story? Was there a story that is so memorable to you that you even feel a little bit regret having that friendship ends?
Well, friendship ends. I need to
Really
look
think
at
about
my
it?
very remote memory, maybe when I was a very little boy. But in my adulthood, after entering my adolescence, teenager years, I I can hardly think of any case where friendship ended.
Thank you. Actually, I was looking for that answer because I feel like for adults, sometimes the friendship they're not ending. They're more
like
likely
fading
to be
away.
fading away,
But
being
that's
watered down.
But that's also ending.
Yes.
That's also ending.
Yeah.
And researchers, they looked at, one study from the 1980s, they looked at 90 adults between aged 20 and 28 and the different reasons that their friendships came to an end. And one of the reasons was a lack of physical proximity, geographic inconvenience, if you will. And being an expat, someone who has lived overseas for half of his life, I can attest to that. You have friends come into your life because they'll move into the country where you're living, and then you'll have friends leave your life because they go back to their home country or somewhere else. And that, in a sense, is the friendship ending. It's not that there was a big dramatic fight, but you're not close to each other geographically anymore, so you tend not to communicate that much anymore.
This makes a lot of sense. When I was in primary school or middle school, I can always be good friend with my seatmate, whoever's sitting next to me. And the thing is, when the seat arrangements changed, we, talk a bit less, and I have quote unquote new friends with my new seatmate. Yes, I was really realistic when it comes to this. So geographically, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So again, going back to my to the sharing of my personal experience, I also have had situations where I used to have a lot of interactions with a particular group of people or a particular individual during a particular period, middle school period, university period. But as we graduated and move on to our next stage of life, indeed, that intimacy, that close level of interaction no longer existed. But I somehow feel like less interaction does not really affect the core of our friendship, because each reunion every now and then still gave us a lot of fantastic feelings. Like most recently, I made a trip actually back to my hometown and the nearby cities with a particular purpose of reunion, of meeting some old friends once again. I hadn't met with these people for many years. For some of them, it's more than a decade. But the moment we met, somehow I felt like the old feeling, the old relationship remained.
That also is very common for some people when they meet with old friends. Their old accent even came back.
Yeah,
so,
their old accent.
Yes. So let's talk about interference in other relationships. Have you ever had a friendship affected by that?
Interference?
Yes.
In terms of, if you're dating somebody and all of a sudden you don't spend as much time with your other friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, that happens a lot, I think. They did a survey in America and they said that 66% of all or most of their friends, 66% said all or most of their close friends are of the same gender, and women were more likely to provide this answer than men, 71% to 61%. I think it's a natural thing. Let's talk about that. Do we agree or disagree? When you get married, your relationships with a person of the opposite sex, those tend to disappear more so than the friendships that you have with the same gender. Do you think that's fair to say or not?
Guess so.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. That's largely the case. Yeah.
And also, in certain cases, for those who started to have kids, they tend to remain the friendship and keep the friendship with those who also have kids. And especially in the similar age groups, you can talk about raising the kid. Whereas if you continue to be friends with those without a kid, the common topics that you can share, it feels like there are fewer topics.
Yeah, well, I was reading a blog post from a writer. I believe she was a writer for the New York Times or a big media outlet. And she was sharing a personal story. She said that she was very close-knit with a small group of female friends of hers. When they were in college, they did everything together. They went everywhere together. And that was about maybe over a decade ago. And now the group still keeps in touch through a group chat and things like that. But here's what happened. In the group chat, suddenly, bing, a picture shows up. And it's all the members of the group except for her. They're in downtown New York. They're in Manhattan having cocktails somewhere. And they're wearing hats from a local tennis tournament that they had attended together. And she didn't get the invite. And she said suddenly it hit her. You know, she has 2 children and a husband now, and those friends are still single. And she was destroyed that she didn't even get an invite, feeling that her friends, just because her life circumstances had changed, her friends decided to just ignore her and not invite her to the event.
I'm going to sound cold-hearted and harsh, but what lacks in the story is that has she turned down invitations, and how many times did she do that?
Well, that wasn't included in the blog post. Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think it's an inevitability. And this is what, I looked at a lot of different articles on this topic. And all of the researchers seem to agree on this, is that as we get older, our group of friends tends to get smaller. And inevitably, we will lose our friends as time goes on and as your life changes and your priorities change. But here's the million-dollar question. Are these friends who maybe would disappear from your life, are they worth trying to hold on to put in the effort? And experts say, before I answer, what do you think? What do you think they say about that question? Is it worth putting in that effort when you have your other priorities to try to save these friendships?
Yeah, well, I think ultimately it will comes down to this question, how much do you really cherish this particular friendship with this particular individual? How much nice memory do you share together? If it's just a, day-to-day, not day-to-day, but just average, nothing extraordinary kind of friendship, then why not let it go?
It sounds so terrible.
I know.
To define somebody like that.
But I'm going to say something even worse.
But you're absolutely right. It's just those words sound so harsh.
And also what Ding Heng here, at least what Ding Heng said is that how much you cherish the relationship. What I'm going to give is even worse. That is how much the relationship mean to you. Because if you know Chinese, in the Chinese language, we have a word for friends, that's 朋友. And the first character, 朋, actually, initially, it means a group of people. And the second character, 友, it means hand in hand. It means cooperation. It means together. So deeply, the first character carries the meaning that if you're friends, you should have the same goal. You should work together towards the same direction. Whereas the second character emphasizes that you should deeply connected with each other. You should be able to understand each other's feelings. You should be able to empathize on a deeper level. So a 朋友 should be like that. A friend should be like that. If you're not physically together, if you don't talk to each other that much, even if you still value that memory quite so much, technically speaking, this person is no longer the really, let's say, typical or up to standard friend with you. He or she would be an old friend that you share memory with, but you no longer have the same direction you go together, and you no longer have the ability to empathize each other's situations deeply. Then let's just, call it an old friend.
Cultural question. In China, if you use that word between yourself and another person, 朋友, you said?
朋友, yes.
朋友. If you're using that word, is there more pressure in the friendship in Chinese culture, do you think? If someone is considered a really close friend, do you feel more of a, I don't want to use the word burden, but a responsibility to take care of that person?
Yeah, I think there is certain element of that is true to that.
But it's getting less pressured.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, 朋友, and also another word is 熟人. It's more like acquaintance. So, yeah, we have the Chinese equivalent of English
And since we're switching to Chinese learning lesson for just 1 minute.
Don't turn this into takeaway Chinese.
But I do really want to introduce another word, a Chinese idiom, 志同道合. It basically means we have the same aspiration, we have the same goal, we're working towards the same long-term destination, then that is a true friend that at least at this life stage you should cherish.
Yeah.
So I think my answer is that if an old friend is becoming an old friend, let him or her be.
Yeah, and back to my original question, what do you think experts say about that? That's what they say, is that when a friendship ends, you don't necessarily have to worry about it too much. Now, they are talking about the types of friendships that kind of naturally dissolve without any dramatic event. They say that it's okay to let it go. They also say, the researchers, and I thought this was quite interesting, that people tend to, and this might be cultural, but people tend to over-romanticize their friendships, perhaps even sometimes more than their romantic relationships, which is why it can be harder to lose a friend than it can be to end a romantic relationship. Now, of course, that depends on a lot of different types of things, but it is a possibility.
Yes, and in the end, you only have a fixed amount of time and energy in your life, and don't view this or anything like a breaking up with an old friend, the ending of an old friendship, viewing it as the possibility of starting a new friendship with some new people that will even benefit both you and your friends more in the next stage in life.
Yeah, and just a final point on this, if it does end in a dramatic way, then they say that you should allow, it's very analytical, but they say that you should allow your feelings about the relationship to inform your decision. So if you feel like losing that person from your life is going to leave a massive void, then put in the work to fix that problem with that friend, and don't just let them go because you're stubborn and you think you were right. And that could be a mistake as well.
Yes. So stop asking yourself, what do I do when a friendship ends? Ask yourself, how will this experience shape the way I approach future connections? You're listening to Roundtable. Coming up next, why do people in one of the world's most tech-savvy countries still prefer air drying their laundry instead of have a clothes dryer at home? Don't go away.
Looking for passion? How about fiery debate? Want to hear about current events in China from different perspectives? Then tune in to Roundtable, where East meets West and understanding is the goal.
It's Roundtable with myself, Niu Honglin, Steve Hatherly, and Ding Heng. In many parts of the world, clothes dryers are seen as essential household appliances. However, in China, they remain surprisingly uncommon. This decision isn't about space. There are deeper cultural and economic factors at play, from a reverence for natural methods to concerns about energy consumption. This avoidance reflects a distinctive approach to daily life. So, before going into detailed facts and figures about clothes dryers here in China, allow me to ask both of you, do you use clothes dryers or prefer air drying?
Well, to me or at my home, it's actually a combination of the two.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nowadays, some washing machines, including the machine at my home, they are advanced enough to be equipped with this drying function within it.
But you don't use it all the time.
Yeah, not necessarily all the time. So if we're talking about a scenario in which I am really in a hurry, like I wish to wear this t-shirt right after washing it, then I will turn on that drying function right after washing it.
This is even more interesting. You have it at home, but you don't use it all the time. This is a great example of how people here in China don't at least rely on these machines.
Well, I mean, it's not that surprising, right? Look at your smartphone. Do you use your smartphone for everything that it can do?
Good point.
Not really. It's not a perfect analogy.
No, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, right. You have to wash your clothes, but you don't have to dry your clothes if you don't want to, right? I thought this was quite interesting. The number of dryers per 100 households around the world. And this will explain very clearly the difference in dryer culture. This is something I've never thought about before, dryer culture. Per 100 households in America, 80 dryers per 100 households. That implies nearly everyone has one, right? 80% of the households. UK, France, and Germany, around 40 per 100 households. Japan, 39 per 100 households. China, 6.
6. Wow.
So tell me about this non-clothes dryer culture that it seems, anyway, to exist. Probably not so much in the modern day times, but at least in the past, I guess.
Well, I think to start with, for us, a lot of different types of household appliances, if you really think about it, they don't enjoy a really long history here in China. It's about 40, 50 years ago, if we take time back a little bit.
For washing machine, it's first emerged in China in the mid-1970s.
Yes. And also, for example, television and also 80s and refrigerator. So we didn't really have a really long history about it. And as for if you think about, for example, refrigerator, the amount of electricity spent per refrigerator, and also the amount of electricity used for a clothes dryer, then the clothes dryer is a monster eating electricity. And that was culturally not something that every Chinese citizen would enjoy. So that was definitely one factor. But for today's Chinese people, I feel like we concern about the environment a little more as well.
Yeah, because drying machines, they are more energy costly, that's for sure, compared to, say, washing machines or refrigerators, TV sets, that's for sure. But in the meantime, I feel like in the Chinese mindset or mentality, there is this great emphasis on, proximity or being close to nature. That you know what I mean? This kind of your clothes being dried by natural wind, by sunshine.
Oh, sunshine is very important for me as well.
Looks much more healthy. Looks much healthier than machine dried.
Don't you have that?
Clothes.
Yeah, in the Western country, don't you want your clothes to be air dried as well as dried by sunlight?
When I was growing up and I used to hang out at my grandparents' house, I have very vivid memories of the clothesline outside my grandma's house. Because she used to ask me to help her to hang the clothes. And the reason I remember it so clearly is because I was short at the time. I was a little kid, so I remember trying to reach up to the clothesline with the clothespins. She preferred it. She preferred drying her clothes in the sun a lot fresher, and you're right, a connection to nature. But it's just such a natural a part of being at a Canada house, I think, is to have a dryer there. And I wonder if it has something to do with colder weather. Maybe it's not as easy for many months of the year to dry your clothes outside in Canada or in the northern part of the United States as it is in the warmer months. We don't have as many warm months, perhaps, or the temperatures aren't as friendly. I'm speculating here, but that could be part of the reason as well.
It could be part of the reason, and it is also affecting the situation here in China. If you live in the southern part of the country, we get to see more and more, especially the younger generation, started to embracing the lifestyle of having a clothes dryer at home, because in the southern part of the country, like Steve has said, we do not really have sunlight and dry air in many months. And being able to dry the clothes instantly and take it out with the toasty temperature and even the smell is actually a really good experience. What's funny is that nowadays some people, especially young people, for those who enjoy this kind of service and do not have a clothes dryer at home just yet, what they're doing is to go to a hotel, rent a hotel room for not one day, but several hours, 4 hours or so. I think that is the amount of time that you can rent a hotel or book a hotel here in China. You book it for 4 hours. You use the clothes washer and you use the clothes dryers and you enjoy that service a little bit. It was funny for me.
Yeah, maybe it's more convenient, but it is a cultural difference between Europe and North America as well. I found, Reddit, right? The website where you can post things and then people comment on it. Well, the post on Reddit was, "What's for you non-Americans? What's everything every American needs to know?" And the top comment was, "Electric dryers are nowhere near as common in the United States." And it had 7,000 responses to that particular post. And it got comments from people all over the world. And as I was reading through this, I didn't know this. And I remember when I moved to Korea into my first apartment, looking around thinking, well, where's the dryer? Not thinking that it would be any different. But there are cultural differences there as well, even between Europe and North America.
Yeah.
In that case, I was wondering, with more and more people concerned about the energy consumption, about carbon neutrality, about whether or not we're taking good enough care of the planet, do you think more people would be able to embrace this at least hybrid style of drying their clothes?
Yeah, I think that will be the trend in China as well. That will be the future because at the end of the day, it comes down to what kind of lifestyle, what kind of pace of life you will have for example, in urban areas.
More eco-friendly dryers, too.
Yes, so it's always fun to see something as trivial as a choice to forego clothes dryers in China can be a reflection of broader cultural values that we've just discussed. That brings us to the end of today's roundtable. Thanks you for listening. This is Niu Honglin, Steve, and Ding Heng.